It was late afternoon as a gentle snow began to fall. December 23rd, when I had decided to leave and head to my grandmother's house. I wanted to spend Christmas Eve with her and join my parents at their house on Christmas Day. Granny Debbie had been living alone at the old farmhouse for several months since Grandpa Jerry had passed away. I thought it would be nice to bring her a present and spend some time with her, as she couldn't drive herself anywhere these days. I offered to bring her to my parents' home, but she had declined my invitation. She wanted to be at her home for Christmas, and it wasn't big enough to contain all of my brothers and sisters with their spouses and children. I'd always been close to Granny Debbie and Grandpa Jerry. I wanted to at least see how she was doing, especially since she had sounded odd on the phone the last few times I'd spoken with her. The sky darkened as the snow started coming down harder. The wind became more intense, howling as it whipped through the trees. I had checked the weather the day before, and it wasn't supposed to be too severe, so I wasn't very worried. Only a few inches was expected. I was sure my car could make it through the dirt roads to the old family farmhouse. Plus, I couldn't miss out on all the sweets Granny would make. She always made me a stack of bonbons, peanut butter balls, and coconut cake. Not exactly traditional holiday treats, but it's what my granny loved to make. I was the only one coming, so she'd probably send me on my way with a Tupperware dish full of treats. My mouth was watering just thinking about it. When I pulled onto the property, the snow was falling so fast I could barely see 10 feet in front of my car. My headlights were reflecting off of the snowfall, partially blinding me. I'd driven down this road hundreds of times, luckily, so I was able to make out where I was going. Mostly. I was trying to keep my pace. I didn't want to slow down and lose traction, and not be able to get going again. Eventually, my persistence finally paid off. I could see the lights through the windows of Granny's house off in the distance. Seeing those lights, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was going to make it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A deer running across my path, jumping swiftly as it went. I'm not sure what made it want to run in front of my car, but I had to do something. I slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting it, for its sake, and for mine. I started sliding in the snow, and the deer took one final leap as its body slid across my windshield. I heard the clip of its hoof hit the window right before it landed in the snow next to the car. I turned just in time to see it take another leap away from me and off into the forest. I exhaled forcefully, trying to reassure myself that it was okay. The deer seemed fine, even though it had hit my car with its hoof. I took a look at the windshield and could only see a small chip in the glass. Could have been worse, I said to myself as I turned my attention back to the road. I had slid off the path a little, but could see where I needed to get back to. I pressed the accelerator gently at first, but I could hear the tires spin in the snow. I tried pressing again, faster, but they just kept spinning. I put the car into reverse to see if I could rock the car out of the snow, but the tires spun uselessly. I was stuck. I looked out again at Granny's house. I couldn't have been more than half a kilometer away from it. I thought I could make out a figure in the window of the house, surrounded by the glow of the lights coming from inside. Something hit the car, shaking it violently. Something big. I tensed up and grabbed the steering wheel tight. I heard the car being hit again. The second time I could feel it was coming from behind me, like something was jumping on the trunk of my car. I looked in my rearview mirror to see what was going on, but I could only see snow falling down, tinted red by my taillights. Then I saw it, or part of it. A large, bulky figure appeared from the snow, rushing towards the car, slamming into it. I heard something snap within the frame of the car. I finally broke myself out of my trance and tried to hit the accelerator again. This time I didn't hear the spinning of my tires in the snow. I looked around and I could tell the car had been moved forward, probably by the last crash. But whatever it had done to my car, I wasn't going to be moving any further. I looked back in my rear view to see its arm slam onto the lid of my trunk. It let out a low, guttural growl that grew into a shrill howl that made the hairs on the back of my arms stand on end. It was a terrifying sight to behold. It was a giant beast covered in thick, dark-colored fur, with twisted and gnarled antlers jutting from the sides of its head. I could see it focusing on the reflection of my eyes in the rear-view mirror. Its eyes were a dark red, almost black in color. Through the snow I could feel its intensity. All of a sudden, it slowly started backing away, disappearing into the falling snow. I was alone now. Breathing so hard I barely noticed how hard I was gripping the steering wheel. I started looking around to try and find the thing that had broken my car. What did it want from me? Why did it attack me? My mind was whirling from the shock. I finally settled on the fact that, whatever it was, it had broken my car to strand me out here. Maybe it had even scared the deer into running across my path. It could wait until I got out of the car to do whatever it was going to do to me. I slid down in the seat, trying to hide myself, for whatever good that would do. I could hear my heartbeat in my chest, my pulse beating faster and faster. I took a long breath in and out, trying to steady myself. What do I do? I asked myself. I looked back to the farmhouse. It wasn't that far away. Maybe I could make it, I thought to myself. I looked around the car again. I couldn't see much, only what the lights of my car would let me see in the growing white vortex of snow around me. I can make it. I didn't want to get eaten or killed. There were guns at the farmhouse. I could get one of those and maybe take care of this thing before it took care of me. I took one last look around the car, slowly scanning for any sign of the thing. I didn't see it, but it could be hiding just a few meters away. Just don't look behind you, I said to myself as I unfastened my seatbelt. I took a deep breath and threw open the car door. I jumped from the car, nearly slipping in the snow, but managed to twist my body to keep my balance. I turned and started moving as fast as I could through the snow. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. My muscles burned as I lifted my legs high to get into and out of the snow on the ground. Don't look, I kept telling myself as I trudged toward the farmhouse as fast as I could. As I crossed the fence surrounding the house, I heard it again. That guttural growl. But this time, it seemed more distant and sad. I reached the porch steps, and I turned to see how close it was to me before I got to the door. It wasn't close to me. It was standing in front of my car, illuminated by the still running lights. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there.
Are you going to stand out there and freeze to death, or are you going to come inside, dear?
I heard a gentle voice say from behind me. I turned around to see Granny motioning me inside. Granny, get inside, there's a I was going to point out the thing in front of my car, but when I turned around, it was gone.
There's a what?
She inquired. I looked around frantically, but quickly decided I'd rather be inside than outside at that moment. I stepped through the doorway and Granny pushed it closed behind me.
It's good to see you, Sonny.
It's good to see you too, Granny. Where are Grandpa's guns? I asked, still out of breath.
Good gracious, what do you need those for?
Granny asked. There's something out there, Granny. Something big. It's got these weird horns in it.
Oh dear. That's your Grandpa Jerry. You don't need to worry yourself none about that,
Granny said.
Now come on in the kitchen. The bonbons are still warm. You like them when they're still warm. I tried to time it for when you got here so you could enjoy them.
No, Granny, you don't understand. This thing is huge and covered in fur. It's not Grandpa. Grandpa's gone, Granny, I said, catching my breath. Granny grabbed my arm and started pulling me towards the kitchen.
Oh, I know he don't look it. And yes, he's passed on from his human life. He's moved on to be with the forest, a guardian. But he'll always be my Jerry. Now come on over here and try one of these. I added some nutmeg and citrus to these, and I want to know how you like them,
she said, as she handed me a bonbon from a platter on the kitchen table. I took the bonbon, but just stared at Granny Debbie. Granny, that's not...
Oh, hush. I know you young ones with your phones and your internets aren't in touch with the old ways. But one day I'll join him, and maybe you will too. Not your daddy, though. He's always rejected the old ways. Now hush up. I don't want to hear no more about it. Now tell me how the bonbons are,
she said, with the sweetest smile I'd ever seen. Her eyes were lit up, waiting for me to eat it. I looked down at the bonbon, and then I ate it, all in one bite. I chewed on it for a moment as I tried to put together what she was talking about. But I just couldn't. Was she losing her mind? Or was I? I know what I saw, but I couldn't imagine that thing was my grandpa. Though it didn't attack me. Was it trying to help me?
Well, how is it?
Granny asked. I stared at my Granny. Her eyes were glowing as I ate the bonbon. It was good. The little hint of citrus really brought out the chocolate. They're really great, Granny. I love them.